We here at the Past Midnight Studio would like to shout out fellow creator Cardioid Arrest, who has made the music for this broadcast and will be working with us in the future. Thank you for your hard work, and the link to their channel may be found in the description below. There you can find more works of horror from their own hand. And now back to the program.
About a week ago, I found myself on an overnight train home after visiting a very good friend on the East Coast. For whatever reason, I was struggling to sleep that night, continuously drifting in and out of odd dreams. So when I awoke and saw the sun cresting the horizon to bring on the new day, I decided it was a good enough time for me to rise. As I put on my suit, I glanced at the clock. 5:02. Wonderful, I thought. The dining car should have just opened. I leisurely strolled through the train and into the dining car, and to my surprise, there was another guest, sitting at a small table. I could tell this man was wide awake. He wore a gray two-piece suit with a light purple tie, almost periwinkle, and I could tell by the way he was shaking his leg, and by the ashtray filled to the brim in front of him, he was in some kind of distress. His eyes met mine, and in an instant he waved me over with a clearly forced smile. "Cigarette?" he asked as I sat down. "Well, don't mind if I do." "Do I look mad to you?" "Well, no, not terribly." "I'm not. You know that, right?" "Right, of course. Why are you so concerned?" "Well, I had an experience as of recent." "An experience?" "Indeed, one the news would never believe. I'm a journalist, you see." "I see." "Recently, I was sent to the town of Miskatonic to do a paper on the state of the restaurant and bar industry." "Oh, I went to university there." "Oh, really? What for?" "Pathology." Interesting. Anyway, where was I? Yes. I was sent to Miskatonic to do a report on the restaurant and bar industry for the newspaper. Good evening. Welcome to the Henry Armitage Inn. Named after the legendary librarian, I assume. The very same. Fantastic. I would like a room, please, and a table in the restaurant. Of course, sir. And how long will you be staying? Oh, just the night, thank you. As he wrote down my booking, I realized two distinct oddities about him. First was that on his ring finger was a silver ring shaped like an octopus's tentacle coiled around the digit. Second, and far more concerning, was that his eyes were yellow and had the horizontal pupils of a goat. "Sir?" "Sir." "Oh, yes? Is everything all right, sir?" "Yes, quite, thank you." "Very well. Arthur here will show you to your room." I followed Arthur through the restaurant, up the grand staircase, and over to the door that sat right in the center of the interior surrounding balcony. "Our manager figured you were with the newspaper, so we upgraded you to the grand bedroom free of charge." "How is it you knew that?" "Sir, most people don't carry a typewriter with them." Yes, that would make sense." As Arthur placed his hand on the door, I saw he too possessed the same silver ring, and I noticed looking back at him, the eyes to match. "Everything to your liking, sir?" The room was gorgeous. Thick red curtains lined grand windows and a door to the wraparound balcony. There was even an in-room bar resting opposite the king-size bed, dressed in matching red sheets. "Well beyond. Thank you very much. I'll relay your compliments to the owner. Your table should be ready now, so come down as soon as you settle in." "What will you have?" The calamari and sidecar to start." "Very good, sir." The restaurant was quite a sight to behold. The grand staircase sat across the restaurant from the door, with seating in between. To the left was a bar packed full of fine spirits, and to the right a poker table was set up. Above was an interior balcony surrounding the restaurant, which was a mix of more seating and doorways to bedrooms. The entire place had red brocade wallpaper, dark wood board and batten, and gold leaf crown molding. "Your food and drink, sir?" Thank you. It smells delicious." I took a sip of my sidecar and my mouth exploded with flavor. It was heavily fronted by what must have been an OX cognac, followed by the still delectably noticeable taste of some kind of fine orange liqueur that must not have been Cointreau, but rather something somehow finer. This was all delightfully complemented and perfectly balanced by the citrus of an astoundingly fresh juice. And then I was suddenly hit by an unexpected taste. It was fishy? Yes, that was the unmistakable taste of fish. Excuse me, this might sound strange. Is the sidecar not to your liking? Well, no, it's quite delicious, but also fishy? It's a coastal town, sir. Everything's fishy. This man as well bore those distinctive yellow eyes. The calamari came out next, and it was just as delicious as the sidecar. Once I ate my fill, I waved my server order and asked for the check. Oh no, my friend, for journalists such as yourself, food and drink is free. Well, that's mighty kind of you, I said with a smile. Of course, sir, the man said, and walked to the next table. You know, I wouldn't mind another drink if it's free, I thought as I began to walk over to the bar and sat down next to a bit of a rugged-looking man. What will it be, sir? An old-fashioned, please. Glancing over at the man next to me, I realized he had neither a silver ring on his finger nor the odd eyes of the staff. Excuse me, sir. Do you know what's going on with the staff's eyes? Oh, that? Probably just some spooky contacts they put in to make the place seem a little more unique. Yes, I suppose that would make sense. Maybe I was being a bit paranoid. Oh, where are my manners? My name is Olmsted Adams. Zadok Allen. Great to meet you. We drank our drinks and spoke of a great many things, the odd history of the town, our preferred spirits, and even our favorite nearby fishing spots. As the moon rose higher into the sky and then began to sink, the patrons of the bar slowly but surely began to filter out. Realizing the time, I decided it was time for me to return to my room. I took leave of my new friend, walked up to my room, and laid down to sleep. Despite my rather inebriated state, I couldn't seem to sleep. I tossed and turned for what felt like hours when I was startled by a frightening sound. Damn, you threw the bowl. That's fine, we'll just use the other one. What the hell was that? While I was collecting my thoughts to try and assemble what just happened, I heard something from outside the door. My God, that sounded like Zadok! I peeked my head out and spotted two of the staff dragging Zadok down the grand staircase with a burlap sack over his head. By the sound of his screams, he must have also been gagged. Terrified the staff may spot me, I closed my door quickly and quietly. Immediately, I pressed my ear against the door to hear anything I could. I could still hear Zadok struggling. Then I heard the creaking of a door, and Zadok being dragged down what sounded like stairs. Whatever had been opened creaked and slammed shut. I heard footsteps cross the lobby floor before disappearing through what sounded like the front door. I listened intently for some minutes more before risking opening my door again. Slowly and methodically I turned the handle, and then with the least force I could possibly apply, I pushed the door. When there was a crack just big enough for my eye to see through, I began to examine my situation. Lobby, empty. I pushed the door halfway. Dining hall, empty. Finally, I pushed the door fully open. Staircase, empty. This was good news for my safety, however, one question remained. Where could they have possibly brought Zadok? Cautiously, I snuck over to the top of the grand staircase to get a better look at the ground floor. Still, I didn't see any sign of anything changing, nor any evidence of another staircase. I descended to the restaurant and began my search at the bar, failing to find anything odd, or anything at all, other than evidence of the staff having a few drinks. In succession, I checked the dining area, lobby, and front desk, still finding nothing out of the ordinary. Then I checked every door to find them all locked, other than the front door, but I couldn't just leave Zadok. If all the doors were locked, I thought, somewhere, there must be a key. I searched the room over once again, this time in search of a key. I checked all the places I thought someone would hide something. Under the front desk, behind the bar, under rugs, and so on and so forth, and once again found nothing. Defeated, I returned to the bar to pour myself a drink and collect my thoughts. A poor decision given the circumstance, I know, but I was out of ideas. I went to grab a bottle of whiskey, but as my hand landed on the bottle, I remembered how good that sidecar from earlier was, and decided to check the cognac section to see if I could figure out what was in the drink. Hennessy, Remy Martin, Martel, Cavassier, Calmar. An extremely dark liquor, almost black, like it had sat in barrels for centuries, sat in a clear bottle that was once a white label, now stained yellow by time. It depicted tentacles creeping up the side of the name and the letters XXO. As I picked up the bottle, a metallic shine from beneath it caught my eye. A small metal switch that fit perfectly into the punt of the bottle. I flipped it, and from the center of the dining room with a whir lifted a trap door. Designed to line up perfectly with the floorboards and become completely invisible. I walked over and looked inside. Beneath the trapdoor was a set of stairs. I could hear chanting from the dark abyss within, and with trembling feet I began my descent. Every stair creaked as if it were about to snap. Yet the below chanting did not break, even for a moment. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I saw an open door with a gentle warm glow from within, at the end of a short hallway with walls of raw stone. I pressed my back against the wall of the hallway just behind the doorway, and peeked through the door. Inside was a circle of 8 figures, around what appeared to be a well in a domed chamber that was once perhaps a cave. I felt the humidity seeping out of the room and into the hall, and I could hear the dripping of water and see the shimmer of the wet walls that were illuminated by the 7 robed figures, each one holding one black candle. The figures were chanting in a language that sounded more like hissing than speaking, and standing around a well made of black stone bricks. At the far side of the well was Zadok, chained to a pole and struggling against his restraints. His face was bloodied, and a purple line had been drawn across his neck with purple chalk. He spotted me and opened his mouth to cry for help, but was interrupted by a thump. Echoing up the well. Fear gripped my heart as the volume of the chanting increased. Another thump, closer this time. Zadok cried for help. Another thump, almost upon us. And then a hand slithered up from the darkness and placed itself upon the rim of the well with a wet slap. As the hand gripped the side of the well, its long fingers slithered and bent around the bricks as if there was no bone within them, stretching and retracting like a leech in a riverbed. Another hand rose and landed opposite the first. Slowly the hands lifted gaunt arms attached to a torso that seemed rotting, with holes in between the ribs that a thin layer of skin was stretched over. Its head was gone. Only a stump leaking black pus was left as an evidence that a head was once present. And the smell. Oh God, the smell. The room smelt as if you left the slime and guts of a fish in a bag for weeks, before sticking your head in it and tying it around your neck to only breathe the pure, distilled scent of rot. It lifted its legs out of the well and perched over the opening like a massive insect, with its knees bent above its torso, which was now parallel to the ground. It turned itself towards Zadok, one limb at a time, fingers and toes growing and shrinking to better grip the stone. Slowly, it reached its hands towards Zadok, frozen in fear. The left grabbed his neck, the fingers wrapping themselves around his throat almost twice. The right he then thrust into his mouth as he gasped for air. His body convulsed as I watched 2 thin, pale fingers emerge from the ears of the man I once called friend, wiggling and curling for a better grip. Then, with a pop that echoed through the chamber, 2 other fingers exploded out of Zadok's eyes, slithering down his face and gripping at the edge of his nostrils. The right hand began to pull up as the left tightened its grip more and more until the head was squeezed off of the body. Then it set Zadok's twisted neck onto its own rotten stump and removed its hand from the skull. It gazed around the chamber at the still chanting cultists, as if through Zadok's now empty sockets. Its stolen face then twisted into an angry, enraged expression, and with a swipe he disemboweled one of the figures. Guts spilled out onto the floor as the body spasmed. The figure stuttered and gagged as the chanting ceased. One of them threw up and was immediately met with a slash across the chest, fingers reaching into the wound and removing organs one at a time in quick succession. I couldn't bear to see any more. Pressing myself against the wall and closing my eyes, I listened to their screams as it tore them apart one by one. And then came something almost worse. Silence. I heard it move back to the well, its hands and feet splashing on the blood-covered ground, and then slowly disappear back into the abyss. And then, the sound of death. The sound of blood dripping off the walls, the light pitter-patter of the water from the ceiling hitting the viscera upon the ground. Was there any resistance to your escape? No. Luckily, the building was empty as I ran from that hell into the feigned safety of the streetlights. I see. Rochester, New York. Arriving at Rochester, New York. This is my stop. Thank you for joining me. You've been good company, and it brings me a great peace of mind to know someone knows my story. Of course. Bye now. Good luck, friend. The man exited the train, but as he walked towards the exit, I noticed two figures clad in black tailing him. And I may be mistaken, but I swear I saw the glint of a silver ring on one of their hands.